Hi, Kevin Smith, president of the Villa Maria Cathedral Preparatory Catholic School System. Welcome to a State of School address and welcome to my office. I'm going to share my screen with you and share a lot of information about what we're doing. As I do this, a state of school is not unlike a state of the union or state of state that an elected official might do. It's really our opportunity to share our goals, our priorities, and vision for our school. So you know that Villa Maria Cathedral Prep Catholic School System today are two schools, the co-educational Cathedral Prep, which is the bringing together of the wonderful Villa Maria Academy and Cathedral Prep into a co-ed environment, and Mother Teresa Academy. So let's show you what we're prioritizing and working on. Overall, away from specific goals, these are the things we're trying to bring into the system and make sure we're doing. First and foremost, we're a Catholic school. And as you see in that statement, we are not a school that teaches exclusively Catholics, but because we are Catholic, we teach in the way that we do. So we want to be welcoming and inclusive of Catholics and non-Catholics, and we want people, regardless of background or financial means, to have access to the school. We want all of Erie to want to be part of our school and community. We also are trying to work and being very successful in implementing industry-leading best practices. We want to increase engagement with our constituents. So that's things like this, getting out, meeting alumni, being at events. Really want a dialogue up to and including surveys that we want to make sure we're getting feedback as we make decisions. We want to increase transparency on organizational goals and performance. There's an expression, trust but verify. Of course, please trust us. I would tell you that the school is really professionally managed. The board is excellent. We really have great plans, but we want to be clear and sharing that information with our community. And finally, we want to make sure that we are built to last. If you've read the book and are a Jim Collins fan like me, you might see some of those books over my shoulder. I am a big fan of the work, and I've used his models and his expertise to lead now 5 schools, and all have thrived because we've implemented really effective models that included best practices and things like the dispositions of building to last. So I want to share specifically some more specifics on our strategic plan and our goals, and then some more specifics on financials. So our Vision 2030, our strategic plan, was approved by our board just about a year ago in March of 2024. It's on our website. Please go look at it. But what I want to share with you is that we are being ambitious for the school and that we have a really good process in place. So we have a high-level plan. We have an implementation plan with SMART goals. Everything is timelined, every initiative, every goal, every action. And then we distribute that plan. So every administrative department has a piece of that. Every one of our faculty and staff, our board and its committees are all focused on that, achieving the vision of that plan. These were the goals for this year. So the first is about mission alignment and making sure that we are who we say we are, and we're clear about who we are, what we value, and what we want to do. 2 focused on the student experience, 1 on the academic side, 1 on the student life side, and 1 that's focused on our faculty and staff. And I'll give you some more details about these. One of the important things that we've done this year is to identify and codify our core values. And this is a good point to talk about the segregation of work that happens in a nonprofit or in a private school like us. So as I said, we've got a great management team. We're working every day on implementing goals, strategies, et cetera, and partnering with our board of directors on strategic priorities and policies. So it is the board of directors that would approve major policies like mission, like strategic plan, core values, budgets, tuition, et cetera, et cetera. Typically, our management team is developing these, working with our board committees on that, and then having them approved by governance. We decided to engage with our community and ask the question about what we value. So we heard from Villa alums, prep alums. We heard from families currently involved in our schools, from students, from parents, from our faculty and staff. All that came in through survey information. Our management team went through that and listened and discerned, and then made a recommendation to the board. And the board approved these values: faith, excellence, integrity, respect, and service. And I hope as I've been talking, you've read through those details. And I hope too that if you've been with our community, that you look at that and say, yep, that's what we're all about. Our next step is to go through all of our policies, procedures, handbooks, make sure that they are reflective of these values, make sure that we're always aligning our work to these, and we're also going to do visual representations of these. This is a mock-up that I did of what it could look like, but when you come to a prep event, an MTA event, if you're in one of our facilities, you see clearly who we are and what we value. And we've looked beyond the industry too. I do that regularly to see the best of what's happening across industries and try to bring that in and apply it here. So we're not sure what it's going to look like, but we want that goal to be evident that we are who we are, we value what we value. Let's talk about academics. I want to put a spotlight on the academic path program that's in force at the high school. This has been around for a few years. We thought it was a good time to step back, reevaluate it. You can see some of the key questions that we asked ourselves. So we looked at enrollment rates. So where are our students' interest? Do we have the expertise to do this? Do we need someone from the outside to help us? Do we modify? Do we change? And how do we get more kids involved in this? And how do we leverage it? So we've made a reorganization. BizPath and MedPath have been in place for several years. Those will stay. Those are well enrolled, robust, and we're increasing entry points to those. So great leadership in place for those, great programs, and great community engagement around those. So we've changed the others. We no longer have a global path, an arts and architecture and engineering, and a technology path. We now have a civics path and a STEM path. Frankly, Global Path only had a few kids involved in it, and it was really not clear in definition. Some kids wanted to go into law, and they thought that was the path. Civics Path focused on law, political science, public service, nonprofit leadership, a lot of places where our students will thrive. And then STEM Path, really consolidating all the science and technology and engineering and math into one. We've got great programming already in place, so we're going to increase that. So the goal of these programs is that we would have high impact, engaged experiential learning on and off campus. So the original iterations that I saw started with a matrix of courses, and we still will have required coursework, but really leveraging into those experiences that give the kids a deep experience and understanding in these areas. We're looking at some other paths potentially in the future, but we wanted to consolidate, make sure these are excellent, and build from those. So just a little more about these. We saw really good alignment. And if you read down the columns, you can see how it makes a lot of sense to make this change when you align potential college majors and studies and also careers. And threw a couple pictures up there, and I had to put Judge Trisella and Judge Brabender, two of our alums. Perhaps we'll find the next leading attorneys and judges, perhaps business leaders. If you know the legacy of Villain Prep and Erie especially, business leaders, physicians, medical leaders, lawyers, doctors, judges, a lot of community leaders have come through and been formed in our system. All right, just a moment on Mother Teresa Academy. First, everything we do at the high school, we want to also include down at the elementary level. So we want really good cohesive strategy and philosophy and approach to both. Obviously, things that are great and age appropriate. So again, at MTA, we want highly engaged experiential learning, et cetera, et cetera. And they are thriving over there. And I'll show you some data on that. Secondarily, I want to just share two things that are myths and really clarify those. MTA was not created specifically to be a feeder for prep. MTA was designed to serve Erieites, and especially those Erieites that are living in economically disadvantaged areas of the city. We know we have some of the poorest zip codes in the country here. We wanted an equitable opportunity for those students to be in a faith-based Catholic school with high levels of excellence and achievement. And the school's accomplishing that. And no, MTA was not started to feed athletes into prep. Some people think that. The other myth out there is that MTA is subsidized or funded by prep, and that's not true. MTA will not drain the resources from prep, as some alumni fear. Instead, we have separate funding models for each. So each are individually funded and not commingled. I wanted to just put this in front of you when you look at it. If you consider typical outcomes of schools and students in areas that are serving like MTA, they are so far well below these. And you can see the outstanding results we're getting at MTA. The oldest students will be graduating college next year, and they're involved in great programs, honors programs, and really thriving out there. So we don't see MTA as anything but value add for our community. All right, let's talk about employees. I have some of the people that I get to work with and some of those faces. One of the greatest joys of my career in life is working with amazing educators and people that are committed to the well-being of students. These are some of them, and the best thing we can do for the students is hire and retain the best teachers and faculty and staff. We're working to do that. We know we have fantastic people here already. We also want to continue the legacy of that and understand from our employees what they value so that we can work ahead with our board to create programs to support them. All right, finance. Like any business, you need a firm financial foundation. I like triplets and alliteration. With that being said, I want to share more about our finances and where, some of the adjustments we made to how we do this and some of our goals and priorities. So if we want to be built to last, we have to be great by choice. Again, it's the blue book back there. My favorite book by Collins, he wrote it, and I read it post-recession, the Great Recession. And it really speaks to organizations that are structured so that they will do really well despite a good or a bad economy. I'm oversimplifying, but I believe the same thing for schools. So I'm a really big fan of making conservative financial decisions and building resources and reserves to make sure that the school is always going to do well. One of the things that happened in the recession and in COVID is some schools froze tuitions. Not a good decision. And they put themselves in financial difficulty because of short-sighted decisions. What we've been doing here as we make decisions is we've completely overhauled the way we look at our financials. We've got a great CFO, strong finance committee, and really a lot of resource around this. So now we can look at our financial statements and they tell a very clear story, not just about today, but also about the future. So if we're contemplating any big decision for the school, we can put it in, we can model it, and we can run that out over years and decades to say, if we do this, what's the implication for long term? We want to be very predictable on how we manage our finances. We've also been looking at and identifying efficiencies and enacted a number of cost savings. We're nonprofits, so we run on very thin margins, always. Nonprofits do. That being said, we can always look to find to make sure that we're getting value out of every dollar that we spend. Some of those efficiencies were some cost cutting, and some of those were some sunsetting of programs that were not robustly enrolled. And with that, we also did some reduction of workforce. Our goal, again, for parents, for those paying tuition, for the community, is to make sure we're as efficient as we can be in deriving as much value as we can. And we have an obligation to you as stakeholders to do that. We've been working on a ratio of funded and unfunded financial aid. So financial aid, most of it, 90% of it is funded through our endowments, which we are so grateful to the donors that help build those. About 10% now is unfunded, which is done through discounting. If you don't have a healthy ratio there, then over time, it creates a financial difficulty for the school. So we've made some adjustments. We've actually brought the unfunded percentage down, and our goal is to get to 7%. So we're close. So we could do that incrementally over a few years. One of our efforts is going to be increase our endowments and cash reserves because they will support our faculty, they will support our facilities, and most importantly, support our students. And then we're just going to keep going with what we're doing, best practices, improvements, and strategic plan. So here's the pie chart of revenues. You see three big buckets, investment income from our endowment, fundraising, and tuition being the largest percentage. What we want to do too is increase our fundraising to decrease the burden on tuition revenue, frankly. And then you look at expenses and you can see most of it goes toward instructional programs, the administration of the schools, et cetera. I would say if you step back from these specific categories, you would see that most of our expense are personnel. So we're not a for-profit that is producing a product or service that we're getting an ROI on. We're a nonprofit we're a service industry nonprofit, which means we're very employee intensive. So we have good ratios to work with the kids because, again, we're not about profit. We're about mission and doing the best we can for our kids. I always think about this in Collins' Good to Great book, and he did an additional piece that was good to great for the social service sector. And he describes the difference of ROI and profit versus mission fulfillment. So we want to leverage every expense to fulfill our mission and serve our students and families. Okay, so we want to, in this time, to share the tuition for next year. We'll be sending a letter out this week with this, and you can see what the board has approved as our tuitions: prep at $12,680, MTA at $5,540. Obviously, with that, we do give tuition assistance. So when you read the numbers, if you are getting tuition assistance at MTA or prep, make sure you're following through. The applications are due March 1st for that. Please get those in so we can get the appropriate tuition. And MTA, the ratio of what you're doing isn't going to change. So we're going to stay in that ratio. Um, the point I want to make about this is if you look to the graph to the left, tuition does not pay the full cost of education, which is again why we fundraise, why we have an annual fund. And it's really critical that we continue to grow that. We want to moderate tuition increases. And as I said earlier, schools got into difficulty when they froze tuitions. What I've learned over 20 years is that families and the school do better when we have predictable, moderate tuition increases year over year. Just like every other family, we have increased costs because of inflation, healthcare goes up, et cetera. And we want to make sure, again, we're hiring the best teachers and the best staff members and retaining them. So it's really critical for all that. But look for more information in the mail. All right, I want to just talk briefly about value when you look at us compared to other options in the area. The blue line represents Mother Teresa Academy. The orange lines represent other schools, private and public. The data comes from the Department of Education. This is what they estimate to be the cost if you were to go from district to district. So if I'm enrolled or I live in Erie, but I want my child to go to Fairview or Mill Creek or any of those, this is what you would pay in those. And you can see the other private options, MTA, Erie Day School, and the Erie Catholic School System. So I think we benchmark very favorably. The high school doesn't show as much of a delta or difference, but again, it shows that we are a tremendous value when you compare yourself to other educational options. I've worked in Chicago, Denver, Cleveland, led other schools there, and we don't have as much of a comparison group. So we do want to look at this in light of the data we have locally. And I think that our schools are a terrific value. When you look beyond locally, just to the region, if you look at Cleveland, Pittsburgh, other places, our tuitions are well below the tuition you would pay at a Catholic school over in those areas. And so again, very specific to area, I think we're in a good place and a tremendous value. All right, last two slides. So please follow up. If you are a current family, please sign up for next year, get your deposit in. Really exciting things are happening in our two schools, and we want you to be a part of it. So please get those in. We have really good interest for next year. I think we have 225 or 230 acceptances already for next year. I love that people are interested in wanting what we do. Remember, if you need financial aid or you're applying for that, please get that application in by March 1st so you get the best consideration of that. Please support fundraising. We probably don't say this enough. As you saw from the graphic, tuition doesn't cover the full cost of education. We want to make sure we're producing tremendous value and opportunities. We rely on fundraising to close that gap. So please support the general annual fund, whether you can do that a little bit or you can do that a lot. We are big supporters of the schools too, my family, and just really big believers in what we're doing. So join us. And then spread the word. Private schools are still primarily word of mouth. We do a lot of marketing, advertising, website, et cetera, but you telling people about the great experience you're having will convince others to come join us. All right. If you have questions or comments, you want to have a conversation, reach out to me, email or phone call. If you look to the right, that's my family. You can tell that we love being in Erie and we love being part of this community. We didn't stage the colors. It just happened to be what we all put on that day to go to one of our favorite places. We'll be out in Colorado this summer too. But thank you for your attention on this. Again, reach out if you have any questions, and may God bless you.